your favorite villain?
My favorite villain? I kind of like Diddy.
When people say I'm a troll, I say,
I don't know why you're saying I'm trolling people. I'm doing what you've conditioned.
Jaguar Wright has issued a sharp and intense reaction to 50 Cent's documentary on Diddy, saying the version released on Netflix barely touches the real depth of the story. She claims that what viewers saw is only a small slice of what truly exists, suggesting that major accounts, important recorded statements, and significant industry moments were intentionally left out. According to her, the deeper material was held back on purpose, and the platform chose not to go further, leaving much of the larger truth still concealed.
It was done too well. It left out too many things.
So can you speak on Curtis Jackson? 50 Cent said that this is the first one.
I'm sure.
There's hundreds of hours of more footage.
I'm sure there was hundreds of hours of shit that was confiscated from all of Diddy's homes in that HSI raid that never made it to the trial. I wonder what.
Jaguar Wright has released a powerful new interview where she says she uncovered what was left out of 50 Cent's documentary, explaining that after watching it she reached out to Gene Deal, someone who worked closely around Diddy and understood the environment better than anyone else. As a former security insider, Gene says he witnessed troubling behavior, pressure, protected circles, and situations that were quietly managed behind the scenes, which made his absence from a project presented as a major reckoning feel impossible to ignore. According to Jaguar, speaking with him revealed deeper context and details that she believes were intentionally left out, suggesting that the full picture was softened for audiences, instead of showing everything that was truly there.
You call the documentary educational, informational, entertaining. What would you say this documentary?
Gaslighting.
Gaslighting.
And it's sad because there's a lot of stuff in there that's true. But there's.
Jaguar Wright points out that major outlets reportedly held on to footage of serious incidents involving Diddy and Cassie for years before it was ever shown publicly, and she questions why meaningful action only seemed to occur after the window for legal accountability had already passed. She says the documentary avoided addressing this issue altogether, skipping past what she views as the most important question. If there were claims of a large-scale investigation around Diddy, then why weren't the other key figures, associates, and decision-makers who may have been part of the wider system openly examined or discussed, leaving the bigger structure behind the situation unexplored?
I agree. Like, that's the thing. The story's not even being told. Because in order to tell the actual whole story, you would have to include everyone that is involved. But no. This is about saving the industry and blaming it all on Diddy. Saving the industry and blaming it all on Diddy. Okay, Diddy's going to jail. He's going to do his time. I don't know what that appeal is looking like right now. Because see, the one thing that all of this documentary shit is doing is definitely fucking up his possibility for an appeal to get out early. Especially with the judge and them and the appeal board having to look at the footage of him sitting there with Mark Agnifilo, pretty much working on how to fix the trial.
And for him to be watching the feds watching him.
Yeah, filming the feds.
Lord. They did what they needed to do in this documentary. The whole objective of this documentary was to blame it all on Diddy. The devil made me do it. Blame it all on Diddy. And the rest of the industry is nothing like this. Like when Curtis Jackson sat there in his interview with Robin and sat there and said, I did this because I don't want people thinking that the hip-hop community is okay with this kind of behavior. I don't want them thinking that, we're just going to be silent while all of this is going on. Like, we're okay with this kind of behavior. But my thing is, so now you speaking for all of hip-hop, and all of hip-hop is uncomfortable with this. Meanwhile, you got people like Rue, who on the low key, allegedly Gene Deal has exposed for having his own
needed to do in this documentary. The whole objective of this documentary was to blame it all on Diddy. The devil made me do it, blame it all on Diddy, and the rest of the industry is nothing like this. Like when Curtis Jackson sat there in his interview with Robin and sat there and said, I did this because I don't want people thinking that the hip hop community is okay with this kind of behavior. I don't want them thinking that, we're just going to be silent while all of this is going on. Like, we're okay with this kind of behavior. And my thing is so now you speaking for all of hip hop, and all of hip hop is uncomfortable with this. Meanwhile, you got people like Ja Rule who, on the low key, allegedly, Gene Deal has exposed for having his own nude tryst freak-offs with Diddy.
In that courtroom.
Do you think that hip-hop culture was on trial as much as Sean Combs was?
Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as the hip-hop is fine with his behaviors. There's no one else being vocal. So you would look at it and just say, because that mind your business, or let me not say nothing about nothing, or those things, it would allow the entire culture to register as if they're for that behavior.
If Sean Combs watches this, what do you think he's going to feel?
Like, wow, this is amazing. I think he's going to say this is the best documentary I've seen in a long time. Because you'll see people saying that. I mean, he may feel a different way about pieces.
Wire Wright questions the documentary's biggest selling point, the so-called unreleased footage that 50 Cent claimed to have obtained, pointing out that when the project was first announced, he reportedly didn't even have access to it. She argues that this timing raises serious doubts about how he knew what was coming before events surrounding Diddy even unfolded, suggesting that the situation felt coordinated rather than organic. According to her, this makes the documentary look less like an effort to inform viewers and more like a carefully shaped production where certain elements were emphasized to guide attention, creating the impression that the audience was being directed toward a story instead of being shown the full unfiltered reality.
Our footage that you use to get people to re-upload or resubscribe to Netflix to make this the number one in their TV shows division for almost 2 weeks straight. Beating out Stranger Things. How much stranger is that?
I'm not Becky.
This footage didn't even exist when you said you were going to be doing this documentary. So we've got a videographer, a rogue videographer that has this very, very, very explosive, very explosive footage of him literally sitting on camera, planning how to go after survivors, how to poison the jury pool, how to fix his trial in advance before he's even arrested. I mean, like, is anybody not forgetting when Mark Garrett, when Mark Agnifilo was sitting there talking to the sons in the hallway, and they're sitting there filming, and he's sitting up there. Yeah, well, see, what we got to do is we got to go and we got to put countersuits on all of these people. We have to create lawsuits ourselves. He's sitting there talking about creating lawsuits to affect public perception.
Beale ultimately chose not to participate in the documentary. Once he realized that 50 Cent didn't actually have full creative control over the project, he was the one who held key records and first-hand insight. And after a lengthy conversation with 50, it became clear to him that decisions about what footage could be used, how compensation worked, and which accounts would be allowed into the final cut were being directed entirely by Netflix and the production team. Seeing that the story would be filtered, limited, and shaped rather than presented in its complete form, Gene decided to step away, leaving what he believed to be the deeper version of events left unspoken.
But no cost in doing this because he wanted to tell the story, and he wanted to tell the story like it was supposed to be told and everything like that. I said, yeah, okay. So then the director, I gotta get her name, man, because it don't even sound. I want to put her on blast because she was telling me, she was saying to me that what I was asking for was was crazy and they wasn't spending money like that. I'm talking about you got footage, you got clothing, I was doing footage, I had pictures, all the stuff that I had, you could figure out a way to pay a brother and stuff like that. And then I was telling her about some prices that I've already received, and I had the invoices to show it. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I was like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff. The first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. If you could make a picture look like $10,000-$15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're gonna pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, one thing led to another, and I was like, yo, all right, well then, F you, I spoke to 50, and then she said 50, and this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what goes in and go out of this documentary. And he definitely don't pay. He determine what somebody get paid. It's not his documentary like that. I was like, oh, so if it's not his documentary and I spoke to him like that, I don't need to be doing nothing with you because I'm doing this on the strength of him. But you gonna pay me if the 50 didn't have the power to do anything, but they using his name to like push the whole documentary. And that's what it was about. So that's why you don't see a cameo other than the pictures they used of me on the film in the documentary. I got like 3 or 4 pictures in the documentary that I've seen of myself. Some people say they saw more, but I know three different times where I was certain places that you could actually see me in a documentary, and that's the only thing you're going to get. But the stories that they told in the documentary, bro, come on. They could have went a whole lot deeper. They could have did.
Gene Deals supported everything Jaguar Wright claimed and made it clear that he wasn't simply sharing opinions. He had long kept material to back it up, including recordings, photos, documents, and records gathered over many years. He says he provided this to the production team, but when he requested fair compensation for his time, effort, and the resources he contributed, his concerns were dismissed. According to Gene, it became obvious that they weren't truly focused on presenting the full story. They only wanted someone to appear on camera long enough to fill space, keep viewers engaged, and prevent deeper details from ever reaching the audience.
Diddy leading up to him getting arrested, and how you feel about all that, man?
Well, what I feel about the documentary, they left a whole lot of key things out. If they was going to do something and they're going to say in the reckoning of Sean Combs, the reckoning, or Diddy, the reckoning and stuff like that, it should have been a lot of people that we lost because of him. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't only Big. It wasn't only Tupac. You understand? For the atmosphere that he put those kids in, you got a guy named Anthony Wolf Jones, who was from Bad Boy from its conception as doing security and being one of the financiers of Puff having to have some money to keep Big and Craig Mack around before he got to Clyde Davis. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't able to tell that story because they didn't have no intel on that story or what went down, or they didn't do their investigations right, which he also led up to the reason why Wolf ain't here today. You understand? They didn't tell that story. They didn't tell a story about Jessica Rosenbaum, who was at the City College.
Jaguar Wright and Gene Deals suggest that some of the material shown in the documentary could have carried serious legal weight, claiming that even Diddy's own legal team was unaware that certain conversations had been recorded. They argue that if a jury had seen evidence implying attempts to influence or sway public perception around the case, it might have strengthened federal investigations. What makes the situation more concerning, they say, is how the film appears to reshape the story of how that footage was acquired, leaving viewers uncertain about what was authentic and what was selectively framed and keeping the full context out of reach.
Imagine if they had had any testimony from Little Rod and the footage that he had from that incident, that firearm incident where the guy G was damn near mortally wounded and was losing his life, and the footage that he had from that. Can you imagine if that had been shown to the jury?
Man.
Like, why not? If it was available for them to get it from Little Rod to put it in a documentary, and Little Rod hasn't gone to trial yet, then why in God's name hasn't any, why did any of this make it to the feds?
That's a great question. Why didn't they even subpoena or talk to?
Curtis Jackson announced in December of 2023, after Cassie's lawsuit came out, that he was going to be doing his own documentary. Isn't it very clever that all of this, alarming and stuff didn't come out of his documentary until almost 6 months after his verdict came in? 2 months after he had been sentenced? It was almost as if they were holding the documentary to not get in the way of his trial. Like, that's the thing that's tripping me out when it's coming to all of this Curtis Jackson praise that's coming on. And there's a lot of people. If he didn't get paid, usually it's like 90 days before you start, you got to put in an invoice and all of that stuff. Like, his business machine was still businessing. You telling me nobody around him. That sounds like that sounds like a setup to me.
Sounds like a setup.
It sounds like a setup to me. And when you think about the fact that, another conversation that we've been having, a lot of people aren't paying attention to the money behind the machine. BlackRock, Vanguard, owners of Diageo, the company that Diddy tried to go after and had to settle out of court for, with sealed findings, and nobody really knows how that turned out before his life got turned upside down and HSI came in raiding, grabbing all kinds of evidence and all kinds of stuff. They're part owners in Netflix. Did you know that?
That's information.
The very company that has allegedly been going out of their way to work with the higher ups to make Diddy's life a living hell have a stake in the platform that's now ruining what's left of his reputation worldwide.
Thing the documentary unquestionably affected, according to critics, was Diddy's chances on appeal, as previously unseen footage appeared to show behind the scenes conversations and strategic discussions with his legal team that could place him in a difficult position. The situation was further complicated by claims that some calls with his attorneys had been recorded without their awareness, leaving members of his legal team frustrated about sensitive conversations being revealed publicly and creating the impression that the release of this material had serious implications far beyond the documentary itself.
It is awful that Diddy owes his life to Mark Agnifilo, literally his life, because he could have gotten life in prison were it not for Mark Agnifilo, his defense lawyer, who had a brilliant strategy. And Diddy screwed him over when he hired this videographer to chronicle his life without telling Mark Agnifilo that when Diddy and Mark were on the phone, this videographer was recording what Mark clearly expected to be an attorney-client privileged relationship. Now, it is true that the client holds that privilege. The lawyer doesn't. But Mark's clear expectation was that this was a private conversation. These were private conversations. And that he and Diddy could talk openly. And Mark could talk to Diddy not just as a client, but as a person, and tried to guide him in a time leading up to his arrest. And unbeknownst to Mark Agnifilo, Diddy has got this guy recording the conversation as he's sitting there saying, "You are screwing this up. You are messing up this case. We're losing." And knowing that that's on tape. And it's almost like he's performing